Alright, everybody. I've been getting a whole lot of recommendations from you guys and requests to talk about this particular topic, and I've been putting it off because I've been so busy lately, but it is really important, and I do feel I need to give my thoughts on it because, well, I gotta be talking about this stuff. I gotta be warning you guys about the demonic plans the Republicans have to take over the country. The plan in question is called Project 2025. I've got the Wikipedia page for it here right now, and I think it does a good job of outlining everything that's relevant to this. So let's go over it, because I think a lot of this is going to scare the shit out of you. Anyway, Project 2025 is a controversial plan authored by the Heritage Foundation. I hope you guys are familiar with the Heritage Foundation. They are a far-right think tank. Tons of money behind them. They're behind a whole bunch of the far-right propaganda that has dominated this country's media sphere. Literally demons. The Heritage Foundation is an activist American think tank based in Washington, D.C., founded in 1973. It took a leading role in the conservative movement in the 1980s during the presidency of Ronald Reagan, whose policies were taken from Heritage Foundation studies, including its mandate for leadership. The Heritage Foundation has had significant influence in the U.S. public policy making and has been ranked among the most influential public policy organizations in the United States. Its sister organization, Heritage Action, founded in 2010, is an influential activist force in conservative and Republican politics. Yeah, they're demons. They're pretty awful. So as you can imagine, they're kind of the money behind all of this. To reshape the U.S., we're going back to the Project 2025 page now. Project 2025 is a controversial plan authored by the Heritage Foundation to reshape the U.S. federal government in the event of a Republican victory in the 2024 United States presidential election. Established in 2022, the project seeks to recruit thousands to come to Washington, D.C. to replace existing employees to restructure the federal government as to further the agenda and policies of Donald Trump. The plan would perform a quick takeover of the entire U.S. federal government under a maximalist version of the Unitary executive theory, a theory proposing the President of the United States has absolute power of the executive branch upon inauguration. The development of the plan is led by the Heritage Foundation, a conservative U.S. think tank. The plan includes widespread changes across the entire government, particularly in regards to economic policy and the role of the federal government and federal agencies. For lack of a better term, they plan for the sitting Republican president, if they win, to have absolute dictatorial power, pretty much. Like, they're just laying out their plan for a fascist takeover if a Republican wins in 2024. This is the plan the entire GOP is behind. Like, they're just outright saying, if we win in 2024, America is going to become fascist. Now, back in the day, I would have said there's no way this happens. American democracy is too liberal and too stable for anything like that to happen, but I do think after Jan 6th, particularly after the, COVID, and, a lot of the rioting that's happened because of COVID and because of, police shootings and stuff, I do think it's reasonable to expect that you could see the Republicans attempt another January 6th at the very least. I feel like politics has gotten, Donald Trump's presidency, if I went back in time and told any, reasonable liberal what would happen because of Donald Trump's presidency in 2016, they'd call me a crazy, overreacting, triggered liberal. No one could imagine Donald Trump's presidency would be responsible for the deaths of millions of Americans so directly as with COVID, or any of the countless other things that he did. A lot of people could predict many of the things he did, but, he went further than expectations, I think, really allowed. After Trump, are you guys really that confident that America is immune to a fascist takeover? Especially when at this point the Republicans have outright explained their strategy for how they plan to do the fascist takeover once they have the presidency, which would grant them the power to execute this plan. It's just a fascist manifesto made by one of the most influential political think tanks in the entire country, and backed and being supported by and followed by the GOP, the Republican Party. Ella Menace, I would have said the same thing as you prior to Trump. Like I now, but obviously not pre-Trump me, because I was, a chuddy teenager. I would have said as well that it's a desperate wish list from idiots who don't know what they're doing before. But like, I don't think anything is. I don't think we've reached the end of history. I feel like a lot of Americans who are like more liberal-minded have this tendency to assume that we've reached the end of American history. That is to say, all of the exciting shit has already happened. This is the norm. Where we are right now is the norm. This will be the norm in perpetuity. There is no way for us to backslide, and there is no reasonable scenario where we're going to have a massive jump forward in progress. It's going to be a slow, incremental thing, if anything, but for at least the time being, like a decade or so, what we are in right now is the norm. It is our what's the term? The status quo. The fact is, though, that is an extremely simple-minded perspective of politics, very childish, and I realized around 19 years old, holy fuck, American democracy is nowhere near as stable and guaranteed to last as I childishly and naively thought it was growing up. There's a system of checks and balances, there are safeguards, and there is accountability. However, come on. Donald Trump got away with everything. Donald Trump's gotten away with pretty much everything up until this point. I have no doubt he's going to have some level of legal action taken against him for the, 4 or 5 cases he's dealing with right now. But, I mean, up to this point, he's faced no consequences despite blatantly breaking the law and attempting to overturn the democracy of this country. If there is no functional consequences to attempting a fascist takeover, and the Republicans now know this, then they're just going to keep doing it till they win. Because the Democrats are not willing to just say, all right, well, the people who did the insurrection are literally traitors to the country. Let's execute them like we did with the, what was the name of that couple? The what? The what? The Rosenbergs, thank you, yeah. With the Rosenbergs. They were like found out to be Russian spies, or I don't even know if it was confirmed, but they were suspected of being Russian spies, and they were executed for treason. For being suspected of being Russian spies. They were executed for treason in the 80s, I believe. We did that, okay? Like, orphaned their kids, exactly, yeah. We did that back then because we suspected they were communist spies. But Donald Trump literally leads a fascist insurrection on the capital of our country. Confederate flag flies on our nation's capital for the first time in history because some redneck in a goddamn buffalo pelt over his head brings it into the Capitol after smashing a window. It was 1953, my bad. Should have been soon. It should have been more recently. Should have been with the insurrectionists today. I don't know. Regardless, my point is, we used to be a real country. Anyway, the Heritage Foundation president Kevin Roberts established Project 2025 in 2022 to provide the 2024 Republican Party presidential nominee with a personnel and ideology framework after civil servants refused to support Trump during his attempt to institute a Muslim travel ban effort to install a new attorney general to assist him in attempting to overturn the 2020 election, and when he called for lethal force against George Floyd protesters. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. In April 2023, the Heritage Foundation published a 920-page blueprint written by hundreds of conservatives, most prominently former Trump administration officials. This report argued for the expansion of presidential powers, installation of conservatives into office within the executive branch via the Unitary executive theory, and implementation of conservative policies. Project 2025 seeks to place the entire U.S. federal government under direct presidential control, eliminating the independence of the Department of Justice, Federal Communications Commission, Federal Trade Commission, and other agencies. The plan bases its presidential agenda on a maximalist version of the Unitary executive theory, arguing that Article 2 of the United States Constitution vests executive power solely to the president. While Trump is not the first president to consider policies related to unitary executive theory, the idea has seen a resurgence in popularization within the Republican Party following the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Donald Trump, now current frontrunner of the 2024 Republican presidential nomination, has falsely stated in 2019 that Article 2 of the United States Constitution granted him the right to do whatever as president, a common claim made by supporters of unitary executive theory. A similar remark was echoed in 2018 when he claimed he could fire Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Yeah, so like he's literally just self-reported that he wants to have absolute power. Project 2025 establishes a personnel database shaped by the ideology of Donald Trump. Throughout his presidency, Trump was accused of removing individuals whom he considered disloyal regardless of their ideological conviction, such as former Attorney General William Barr. In the final year of Trump's presidency, White House Presidential Personnel Office employees James Bacon and John McEntee developed a questionnaire to test potential government employees on their commitment to Trumpism. Bacon and McEntee joined the project in May 2023. Project 2025 is aligned with Trump's plans to fire more government employees than allocated to the president using Schedule F, a job classification established by Trump in an executive order in July 2020. Although the classification was rescinded by Joe Biden in January 2021, Trump has previously stated that he intends to restore it. The Heritage Foundation plans on having 20,000 personnel in its database by the end of 2024. Russell Vought, a former Trump administration official, I don't know why, but I feel like the boys warned us about people with that name. A former Trump administration official and Project 2025 advisor stated that the project's goal of removing federal workers would be a wrecking ball for the administrative state. Climate policy. Project 2025 does not provide strategies for reducing greenhouse gas emissions responsible for climate change. Heritage Foundation's Energy and Climate Director, Diana Fushko-Roth, has suggested Americans should use more natural gas, a cleaner-burning fossil fuel. That doesn't exist. Project 2025's blueprint includes repealing the Inflation Reduction Act, a landmark law that offers a $370 billion to clean technology, shuttering the Loan Programs Office at the Department of Energy, eliminating climate change from the National Security Council agenda, and encouraging allied nations to use fossil fuels. Yeah, just on top of that, encouraging allied nations to use more fossil fuel. I like that. The blueprint supports Arctic drilling and declaring that the federal government has an obligation to develop vast oil and gas and coal resources. Notably, Project 2025 would reverse a 2009 finding from the Environmental Protection Agency that determined that carbon dioxide emissions are harmful to human health. They would literally reverse the EPA's statement on carbon dioxide emissions being harmful to human health. They have outright said if they take control and they gain executive control of the EPA, they will use that power to overturn the EPA's stated position on carbon dioxide emissions being unhealthy for human inhalation. They're literally going to force the EPA to say it's safe to breathe in car exhaust. And they've stated they're going to do this once they have the executive power over the EPA. They are literal super villains. Republicans cannot win in 2024. The Republicans cannot win in 2024. Notably, Project 2025 would force a reversal of the 2009 finding from the Environmental Protection Agency that determined that carbon dioxide emissions are harmful to human health, preventing the federal government from regulating greenhouse gas emissions. The climate section of the report was written by several authors, including Mandy Gunasekara, the former chief of staff of the EPA, who considers herself principal to the United States withdrawal from the 2015 Paris Agreement. The role of the Trump appointee who prevented the climate agreement. The role of the Department of Energy was drafted by Bernard McName. There was no "the" there. I don't know why I read that. Okay. Who has advised several fossil fuel companies. 4 of the top authors of the report have publicly engaged in climate change denial. You guys will like this bit. LGBTQ plus rights and pornography. President Kevin Roberts, in a section of Project 2025's manifesto, claims that under the Biden administration, children suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism with drag queens and pornography invading their school libraries. Pornography manifested today in the omnipresent propagation of transgender ideology and sexualization of children is not a political Gordian knot inextricably binding up disparate claims about free speech, property rights, sexual liberation, and child welfare. It has no claim to First Amendment protection. So he claims that pornography and the normalization of transgenderism have no claim to First Amendment protection. That is what they outright say in their Project 2025, that being transgender and porn do not fall under protection of the First Amendment. And this is just them stating what will happen if Trump wins in 2024 and they gain executive control. Roberts goes on to claim that those who produce and distribute pornography and LGBTQ+ content, quote, are child predators and misogynistic exploiters of women and should face jail time. This includes educators and librarians being registered as sex offenders and the closing down of telecommunication and technology firms that facilitate its spread, quote unquote. When discussing the United States Department of Health and Human Services, Roger Severino, the Heritage Foundation's vice president on domestic policy, calls for the rescinding of regulations prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, sex characteristics, etc. So that's race as well. So, yeah. That is the Wikipedia page on it. It is literally just, objectively, the Republican Party's multi-billion-dollar plan to implement fascism and destroy the world if Trump wins in 2024. Or if a Republican wins in 2024, but probably, Trump because he's the front runner. So, yeah. They're just outright saying it's the end of the world if Trump wins. Like, the Republicans are saying it. Like, they will literally my favorite part is that they will, once they have control of the EPA, like the president has control of the EPA and they've got, like, Trump in office, that they will force the EPA's public position on the inhalation of carbon dioxide from cars and the burning of greenhouse gases. They will overturn the EPA's position on that being dangerous to saying it's safe. Like, just absolutely amazing. I mean, Republicans have been doing this for a long time. Like, they did it with leaded gasoline, of course. But, like, the fact that this is just so mask off, I don't know. I think it's important that I covered this, because you guys need to know how important this next election is. You need to vote blue, no matter the who.